sometimes there are joint operations between multiple agencies. For example, one of them is counter-drug border patrol operation. It does require longevity with organization. You have to be at least 2 years or active law enforcement officer to participate in it. We would need to check in your case if your history would actually help to get you fast-tracked through the process of approving for counter-drug if you become a member of CDC. Okay, so we meet here every Tuesday at 1900 on the clock, except for the 5th Tuesday. If there is a 5th Tuesday in the month, like it was in August, we have informal social meeting at the hangar, right behind the flight again here, and we cook some food or bring some already cooked food, eat, talk, spend time, hangar talk at night. We call it night talk. This group of members have a variety of folks with different backgrounds. We all share passion for aviation, and we share our experiences. We're trying to make our experience with GA safer, more enjoyable, and more purposeful, right? So I personally came to Civil Air Patrol to make my flying more interesting and engaging, and I joined December 2019. Had a little bit of downtime with the COVID, nothing was going on pretty much for a while, and then I think about 170 hours was seated. Alright, so as a prospect member, we are asking you to come and experience our meetings. If you find it's a good fit for you, for your goals, we will get through your onboarding process. We'll help you with paperwork, which you'll send to the national headquarters. And once you receive your ID card, we will make you a member for our squadron. If you feel for any reason it's not a good fit, you may ask for directions to other units, and you are welcome to visit our units and compare. That's always a good idea. I actually came here after visiting Fullerton Squadron and Costa Mesa Squadron, and that I find it home here. Not only because I live closer, but because I enjoy members of the squadron a lot more, and I get back for my personal development a lot more. Okay. And after the meeting, you're welcome to talk to other members, ask questions, and whatnot. Okay. So tonight is a safety night, but before we go to safety topic, Bob, you will go with the topic, right? I will cover a few updates. November 743 Charlie Papa is not in maintenance. It's actually still in Northern California, but it's due for the maintenance to replace the window. It's our 182 Cessna 182 aircraft. It was taken to NorCal because the NorCal aircraft had an engine failure on takeoff at Imperial. But it's hopefully coming back, if not this weekend, maybe the following weekend.
I had a question.
Yes.
Why do they always take Squadron 5's aircraft versus somebody else's?
Well, to begin with, 743 Charlie Papa is not really our aircraft. It's not even assigned to us formally, but that's a good question. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
That is politics, right?
Some kind. We do have an aircraft right now in the hangar. It's a Palm Springs aircraft, 887 Charlie Papa, which just completed 100-hour inspection and service and came back from Imperial this past weekend. We are taking that aircraft with Terry this coming weekend for Imperial mission. And after we come back, we will keep 887 Charlie Papa until we get some aircraft back. It could be 740 Charlie Papa, it could be so-called Zelda, 7598Z as Zulu. So Zelda is a name for a craft we have here, for those who doesn't know. Any questions on aircraft? So if you need to get anything done, the aircraft is here. It's going to be here after we come back on Sunday. So you can plan for flights if you need check ride for 5 and whatnot, or maybe one of your emergency services ratings, and you have a pilot. You can do that, for example, Sunday afternoon after we come back. Yes.
What kind of aircraft? Is it G1000 or?
Yeah, it's exactly the same as 743 Charlie Papa.
Okay.
Same configuration, same avionics. It has number of discrepancies, not affecting the majority of functionality. Like the AHARS is not working, the OTA is not working, so which makes autopilot non-functional altogether. But otherwise, it flies in VFR conditions just fine. Probably need navigation database update and a few other minor things, like missing screw here and there. But it's going to be all addressed over this week by maintenance 1. All right. I posted number of updates on pilot onboarding, safety bulletin on Teams. So there are dedicated channels on Teams, and I'll show it to everybody. So I'll share the window. This one. Yes. So if you install a client of Teams, and it's available pretty much on every type of hardware you may have, a PC, Mac, mobile device, whether it's iPad, iPhone, or Android, you can install it. You need to sign in with your CEP email credentials, which, by the way, you also have Office 365 license to go with it. So if you need Office, you have a free license of Microsoft Office with your CEP credentials. One of the benefits. Then you go to Teams, and the primary area is our Squadron, so CAWG, Squadron 5, and we have a lot of channels. So we have Airspace Education channel, where I suggest, Chris, you may keep track of activities, which will make it easier for you to generate a report at the end. Awards review board, finance, whatever. So some channels are locked, they are limited, the access is limited by specific committee members or members with certain level of access, but majority of channels are wide open. Majority of channels are practically empty. I probably was the only one posting anything, but let's take, for example, well, let's say pilot onboarding, right? So CEP pilot onboarding. So here I posted a number of made a few posts about different topics, and most recently I posted a summary shared by the wing officer about specific steps related to onboarding. So extremely useful, a lot of videos on different parts of the aircraft hardware, equipment, the overview of onboarding process created by Colonel Kim, and so on and so forth. So if you have question, it's much easier to post the question in that specific channel dedicated to topic, and I guarantee I will look into it. Okay, and if I look into it, I will do my best to give you an answer on your question. And if we have it all in one place, it makes it a lot more easier for new members to get the same access to the information. So for example, Chuck, if you post the information on safety officer, what are the tasks required and what is the process, you are welcome to share it under the safety channel, okay, and then direct another candidate for the safety officer role to existing information, rather than people go and scramble to find that specific detail.
Likewise, there is emergency services and so on and so forth. So, any questions? Yes.
Is it specific to Squadron 5?
Well, there are channels for different groups. Like I am part of Group 3 command, right? So I'm finance officer for the group. I have access to finance committee under the group. If you get invited to some other channels, you will have access to that channel in the same place.
And what's the login to get onto this?
It's your email login. So you've got to have that.
Where do you go to put in your login, your own email?
When you run this program, it will ask you. For example, I cannot simulate it because it will stop the session for those online. But when I just came, I logged out from my work email and signed in to CAP email, and it all came up.
You mean it comes up just by signing into your CAP email?
Correct.
Oh, pretty good.
So every member of our squadron is already invited to our channel, and whenever we onboard a new member, and for any reason if it doesn't work automatically, let me know. I will make sure you are actually in the system. Any questions? Any questions from those online? And if you are joining via YouTube, to ask a question, you have to subscribe to the channel, and then you'll be able to actually participate in the chat, right, David? All right. I'll move on. So, events, what's going on in the wing, in neighboring groups, etc. So there will be a Group 1 SAREX at Whiteman Airport, I believe, September 16th, 17th. If you need to get something done as far as your emergency services ratings, etc., that's a good opportunity. There is still time and resources to get it done. Look for email from, I believe, was it Michael King, I think. And anyway, you just search your CP email for SAREX and you'll see all the notifications, because those usually go wing-wide. There will be Group 3 ground team level 3 familiarization preparatory training. So that will take place here at this facility on Saturday, September 23rd. And if you have any questions to sign up, look for email from First Lieutenant Gappason. He's a FLABOP squadron commander now. And if you don't find that, reach out to me. I'll forward it to you personally. Also, there will be a California Wing Conference, and let me give you a quick overview of what that is and what kind of information you may find. I'll have a bunch of stuff. Let me find the relevant one. Okay. So, the conference is information sent to every single member of CAP. So check your emails, right? So if you look to do something, look for something to do under CAP umbrella, your email is the main primary source of information. So let me share that on Teams also. Okay. I will also post the link here in the chat. So what are the key benefits of going to the conference? If you want to get some kind of training done, that's the place. That's one. Second, if you are pursuing advanced level, professional development level, I believe starting at level 3, it's required to have 2 conferences, regional conferences attendance. And I think at level 4, it's required to go at least once to the national conference. So the conference for the wing right now is taking place in Southern California, so all the information can be found here about the venue, and you can look at the schedule. For example, Chris, that's for you. It could be great help, even if you just go for one day, for the airspace education track. They are having intensive program on Thursday, and I think on other days too. So you may want to check it out. If you're interested in becoming Squadron Commander after my time is over, you can enroll in Squadron Commander course. There are social activities, so you can make more friends, get connected to other members of CEP from all over California. There will be transfer of command for the wing commander at the event, awards, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, I'm unable to go due to my business travel. Would be great if someone goes, so we can delegate. Hopefully we'll get a Senior Squadron of the Year award. And last time we couldn't make it because I got sick. And I didn't attend the award ceremony. But check it out, see if you can make it. It's not terribly expensive. And don't forget, all expenses related to CEP activities, official CEP activities, going on missions, going to the conference, is tax deductible. So keep track of your mileage, keep track of your other expenses, meals, hotel, stay, etc. And give it to your accountant when you work on taxes for this year. Any questions on the conference side?
Who's going to conference here?
I don't think anyone mentioned anything so far, so
I'm toying with it. I'm just going to fly into.
yeah, it's close to one night, I believe. Closer to one night.
Well, it's Thursday, Friday and Saturday, and you normally get out of there on Sunday morning.
Yeah, it would be great if at least somebody would go. Last year I could only spend one day there, and then I got down with a cold. Wasn't COVID, but a lot of members back then came down with COVID.
For the dinners and things like that, they require dress uniforms, correct?
That
You can wear a suit.
you can wear like civilian suit,
Okay.
like whatever. I don't know.
Basically coat and tie. That's the simplest way, coat and tie.
Okay.
My Swift used to do coat and tie only.
Next event where we may need help from our members would be Veterans Day, November 11th at Flabop Airport. Either myself or Terry or both of us, we will take whatever aircraft we're going to have for display, and we will run a table top recruiting new members, hopefully. But the organizers of the event will distribute a sign-up sheet asking for help in specific areas, so be on lookout for that. It's nearby, very convenient, and so on and so forth.
Is that actually on Veterans Day, or is that on like the weekend before Veterans Day?
November 11th, I think it's a weekend before then.
Wait, oh, it's Saturday anyways, never mind.
Yeah. Okay, so again, check your CEP emails on regular basis. I pick up all these events from my mailbox. If you are reading your email, you're gonna see it there. I'd like to say thank you to Chuck for providing excellent support for a couple of training missions with communications. So the member of Flabop Squadron came back twice at least with big compliments to you. Thank you very much. It's greatly appreciated. Yes, Arthur. I am not going because I'm traveling, but maybe, I think Chuck maybe is going.
Yeah, but I'm going to be on a different location. So,
Okay.
And I'll be there for 3 days.
If you're interested, you can actually send a group-wide email and ask if anyone is traveling and if you'd like to carpool. The way to properly do it, if you are doing the big distribution, asking a question to the whole group, put the group email in a BCC, blind carbon copy. This way, if people respond, they will not respond to the whole group. They will only respond to you. That's a common mistake in the CEP email because people keep responding to the whole distribution and the whole wing gets it like, come on, a little common sense. All right, well, that's it on my side. So Bob, would you? And after Bob, Chuck would like to present some of the equipment which will be used at that event at Camp Pendleton. So.
Well, I got a thumb drive, but I don't think it's gonna work on that. I should have brought my adapter.
And what self-control.
So, does this computer over here work the screen? Or do we have to work somewhere else?
Goes back to my kids
Hmm. Last time I checked, it had a thermal problem.
Well, okay,
Like I had to shut it down.
I'll just run this this way. I've got them kind of pre-marked on my master sheet here.
Oh,
So this is what I'm following.
I was getting ready. One more thing. I am looking for someone who will help with public relationships and essentially making Facebook posts. And that person will be entitled with bugging me for information and taking pictures at our meetings and writing a short story. You're welcome to use ChatGPT to help you with the short story. if you are not an aspired writer, as my daughter, for example. So I'm taking pictures. Bob, gone.
I don't need a picture. I break the camera. Well, I passed out. It's kind of an outline, and I cranked this out today in a hurry. But I thought it was kind of interesting. I do subscribe to the safety magazine from the FAA. It's got a lot of good materials in it, a lot of interesting items in regards to aviation, and we can also use it in risk management. So today I just came up with mistakes happen. And what are mistakes that happen? They're certainly not a profound statement, but plenty of affirmations that can be found about mistakes, how to recover from them, how to learn from them. And particularly, mistakes have power to turn you into something better than you were before. It's going to be on the first bullet. Seems like great advice in life. But when do the mistakes happen in aviation? And do we view them from the same perspective as we do for mistakes in other areas, whether it's at home, driving the car, etc. So then the second bullet there, I've got an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We've heard that consistently. And even though it's a small portion, if we just take what little we've learned from that mistake and apply it to the future, we're going to be in better shape overall. This applies to aviation and simple errors. We all make errors. We make errors on takeoff. Today I forgot to take and work my prop, and I'm looking at the RPM as 2750, and I'm going, too late now, I'm airborne. So that's what happens when you get in a rush, even though I follow a checklist. I'm going to cover that a little bit down here. And then we have to look at parts 61 and 91. Those are kind of guidelines for all of us in regards to preventing mistakes. from the Civil Air Patrol, from the FAA and its federal regulations. There are a wide range of requirements intended to support safe operations in the national airspace system. So the FAA comes up with rules. Sometimes there are more rules than you can shake a stick at. But if you just take the concept of it and apply that, it will keep us at least on an even keel without tipping over and making a drastic mistake. Some examples here are the critical to maintain knowledge in aircraft that you're operating, including limitations, V-speed, system operations, and emergency procedures. No matter what aircraft you fly, no matter what you do, there's always a book for something, whether it's your car, giving you some warnings on how to operate certain things, whether it's a fishing line that you're using, it'll tell you what's the good bad point of that fishing line, whether you're using the right pull for the weight of that line. And we can apply the same thing with emergency procedures in the Civil Air Patrol, which is pretty stringent. If you look at Part 141 in the airlines, everything is rote memory. And I mean, it's rote memory. And you study and study and study it, so it never leaves your head. And even to this day, I can remember some of the stuff on a DC-10. I've been out of that one for 30 years, out of a DC-10. And then there's the knowledge of airports that you intend to operate out of. Have we checked weather? Have we checked the en route space? Do we know what the traffic pattern is? Do we know what lies within that airport? Do we understand if there's a slope within that airport? If you go to Redlands, there's a 100 feet difference between the east and the west ends of the runway. So if you're going to end up landing to the west, you're downhill. And if you take off on runway 8, you're taking off uphill. So you have to take a look at what you've got for a runway. Most runways have a particular gradient to them. When it goes to commercial, and most runways, they try and hold it anywhere from 1 to 2, half to 1% slope gradient. And then we look at our mental and physical state. Should certainly be a factor whether you're going to take and make a go or no-go decision. Using a checklist is probably one of the most basic things we do, and just think about the Civil Air Patrol, and we really believe that the checklist should be used in all phases of flight. So that's why the checklist becomes pretty solid. Even though you may have thousands of hours in that airplane, the checklist is going to be your Bible. And sooner or later you'll forget something that may be in there. You think you may understand what that checklist is. So follow the checklist, and if you follow the checklist, it's standard. Although each manufacturer has their own checklist, which is certified by the FAA. And you may find something different on a Piper, something different on a Cessna, and something different on a Beechcraft, something different on an LSA. The checklist has been designed for that particular aircraft and has been approved by the FAA. Applicable items on the checklist. How about pre-flight preparations and the items? Have we checked anything in the past or the current or forecast weather? And if you remember Andre's trip back to Oshkosh and the weather report, he was really on top of it consistently, and was always checking on his flight. So even while you're in flight, do we know where we can get weather briefings in flight? Is it marked somewhere on our charts? Yeah. I've used it with American Airlines, believe it or not. They can't believe that American Airlines was calling a flight service station for information when we lost contact with ATC and we're still driving down the airway. And they finally give you a frequency, and then you get on that frequency. He says, yeah, you got to change this to the next frequency, and he'll catch up with you. So just remember that flight service stations are kind of your helper in the, while you're en route, or even ATC if you're going to be on a flight following a flight plan. And then we've got NOTAMs and TFRs. And we find a lot of NOTAMs here locally. and especially TFRs that are here permanently. Anybody know of any permanent TFRs that we have here in Southern California? Pardon?
Ballpark.
Well, yeah, Dodger Stadium, Disneyland. Yeah, Knott's Berry Farm's involved in there. Get down to San Diego, and there's certain TFRs there. So they're always in place. And this came about after 9/11, and they haven't removed them. And to get into those and perform in those, you have to be under strict radar control and under control of air traffic control. How about minimums? Anybody given thought where their cutoff is for a minimum? And we look at some of the actions that have taken place in the last few months here. When it comes to personal minimums, do you review those before each flight or update them as needed? A lot of pilots have certain minimums. They'll say, well, I'll go down to 600 feet, and if I don't see anything, I'm going to go to an alternate. Then there's other people that keep pushing the issue. Well, I'll push it a little bit further. I'll go down to 400. I'll go down to 200. If you're hand flying to 200, it takes a little more skills because that cone of divergence gets smaller and smaller towards you get to that point of touchdown. In the airlines, they make you hand fly it to 100 feet. It takes a lot of practice, I'll be honest with you. But you just have to think about where you're going to do the cutoff. And I've done some briefing as a first officer, and I said, if I get to my minimum decision, I don't like it, I'm just going to go around, we'll go to an alternate, and the captain says, I'm right behind you. So make your decisions early, what you're going to do, and brief your crew what you plan on doing if you're shooting an instrument approach, or if you're going into inclement weather and you have to get there. Where's your alternate going to be? Do you have an alternate airfield that's nearby? So to help prevent mistakes, pilots should be executing repeatable processes for every flight, like using a checklist. And we just covered many of those up there. Getting close to the end here, and we'll give me a few more minutes, is that we must address an immediate safety. First, we must address immediate safety concerns. These concerns could be wide-ranging, and at the extreme end, evolve in a in-flight emergency. So, is it an engine failure, a catastrophic failure? Is it a rough running engine? What are your decisions? Is it going to be fuel? Kind of late to figure out that you didn't put enough fuel on the airplane when the thing starts coughing. And who can help you at the most when you start running out or doing these things? Nobody has any answers. Who are you going to ask next? If you can't do it and you're still playing with the GPS to try and find somewhere where you're going to go, or you're not even close to your alternate and you've got an emergency, how about air traffic control? Use consistently. Your nearest airfield is on such a heading. Make a left hand, make a right hand turn. Air traffic control, a lot of people don't like to use it, but it's really your helper, and they'll do the best they can. The majority of the guys have a little bit of experience in flying, and there are some that have never been in an airplane, and that's why the FAA has what they call jump seat rides for air traffic control, to watch what the pilot is doing in the cockpit, to see what their duties are, to see how busy they get into an approach. And with that knowledge, they experience through the airlines or through any other ride that they can get, it helps them understand what you're going through to help you give the right decision and then get to the right area. Like I say, ATC can be the real lifesaver in your situations. Good practice, you should have the contact frequencies in the area of flight and know how quickly to determine those frequencies. Well, we just determine those. You can either take and look at the areas. You can just, most of your charts will give you a frequency for the VOR. Some VORs are receive only, and you can get an answer off the VOR. They're trying to get rid of some of those now. We don't see many of those in action because the cost to maintain them are pretty drastic. Focus should be addressing the emergency and landing safely. That's the best checklist and the best information you can have in regards to anything. Same thing with the car, or whether you got someone that you're transporting somewhere who may be ill. I can think of a lot of births in a car where the individual just pulled over and helped deliver a baby. So he using their heads, right? Trying to rush in the hospital and have something else go wrong. It's easier just to pull over and stop and try and handle it the best situation you can do, then call for assistance. Some situations involve simply ceasing the operation until the safety issue or non-compliance can be corrected. For example, you've planned a flight on the first day of the month only to realize that the aircraft's previous annual inspection expired the day before that. That's kind of not knowing when your aircraft expires. And we're pretty good here because we have maintenance both for the wing, the group, and we also have maintenance within the squadron who keep up with that. So we know they're getting close on those hours. The airplane is pulled out of service. But there's a lot of people who put the airplane in a hangar and forget about it. Get in the following month, try and fly it, come to find out it's illegal. Now, speaking of being illegal, can you fly into a particular airport without a transponder? And then how do you make it work? It's feasible, and you can do it legally, but you have to notify the individuals that your transponder is inoperative and you need landing instructions. So if you just fly into the B airspace or the C airspace and don't notify them, and you haven't contacted them outside that area, you'll have an issue. If you go into any military base, you got to notify them on the ground that your transponder may be intermittent. Otherwise, they won't let you leave the airport. So that's taken place a couple times at the Aero Club out at March Air Force Base, and we've been able to continue our training flights until we can get it fixed. Some of the things to think about are PAVE. Everybody know what PAVE is? No hands. Pretty easy, right? What's P stand for? Pilot. How about A? Airplane, aircraft, right? How about the V? That's kind of a little bit different. Environment. And then we have the last one is E, and it says external pressures. So they got that, emotions, what have you. And our emotions play us a big part. I had a safety officer in the Navy who was a psychiatrist and was given some talks about accidents. And some of the greatest accidents takes place when we're under stress or we have emotions that are affecting us. One of the main ones, there's three main ones: divorce, death, and financial. And when we sit and think about those, it affects our lifestyle. And I can experience that in the last month with me. Finally got one of those settled down. I'm still working on another one. But it does affect you. And then you get behind schedule, and like today, I got down to the corner and said, oh, I forgot my folder with all the material in it. And make a U-turn and go back to the house. Because I was in a rush to get out to the airport. I was running late. And then we have the checklist of I'm safe checklist. So I is for illness. Do you have any symptoms? We've gone through this more than in some of the other stuff. M is for medications. S is for stress. Then we have alcohol. How many hours can we fly after a drink? Are there some other times involved too?
I would say 24.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
CP at least.
Yeah. There's 8 hours, there's 24 hours. So it depends upon the restrictions that are going to apply to you and what you're doing for that particular system. So FAA has one and the Civil Air Patrol has another. Private companies have theirs. So just be aware of that. And then F is for fatigue. Kind of sounds like me sometimes. Because I'm up early and I'm in bed late after being on the computer for a while. And then we have the emotion again. Am I emotionally upset? When I just covered the last three, yes, we can be upset if it's a family member or a close friend in death. We have to give that a lot of thought. Am I really fit to fly? I can remember a friend of mine when I was going through a divorce with my first wife, although today we're the best of friends. He went to the chief pilot. He says, don't give Pierce any crap. He's going through a divorce. So if he calls in sick, don't call him up. That was a friend of mine over in Phoenix. Tell the chief pilot to lay off of me. And I was really under quite a bit. I didn't want to lose my kids, and they were important to me. Did a lot of driving to San Diego every weekend. Drove to San Diego, stayed in the BOQ down there, gave them a song and dance. I was on duty. But it worked out. It worked out. How does the FAA handle deviations from the regulations? And as part of the oversight model, the FAA has developed a compliance program. So all this came under the compliance program with the FAA. The compliance program has at its foundation an appreciation for transparency and an expected willingness or ability to prevent reoccurrences of the non-compliance. If you dig a little further in that, the deviations result from flawed procedures, simple mistakes, lack of understanding, or diminished skills that may be addressed. And some of these, they're pertaining to students or a flight instructor. But I think we can also apply those to ourselves in everyday life. Compliance actions are non-enforcement and include in an on-the-spot correction, counseling, or additional training and education. So the example of running low on fuel, even if you did not take off with the required amount per the FAA instructions 91.151, it could be resolved without enforcement. So some things to think about. I can remember a picture, I don't know if George remembers it, but there was a CAP member standing in his uniform in the golf course at San Bernardino off of Waterman, and he was in a replica Jenny. So the gas tank sits in front of the open cockpit in the windshield, and it's got a cork and a wire that both goes up and down, and he ran out of gas. Now you got to figure out, was the wire bent? It's pretty hard to run out of gas if you check your fuel tanks before you leave. But he was sitting there, and I said, oh, that's a great promo shot of the Civil Air Patrol. A guy ran out of gas. He's on the golf course in his Jenny. I never did find out what happened to him. But I always laughed at that particular article. It was right on the second page of the Sun newspaper. Come. The FAA has to validate some correctional actions that are effective, and this brings us to the compliance program that is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. Rather, the intent is to use most effective means to address safety concerns. This may include corrective actions taken by you prior to being contacted by the FAA, following a regulatory compliance, such as receiving ground or flight instruction in the relevant subject, that you are weak in. I've seen that happen in our Aero Club. We had an individual who thought it was neat to take and study instruments while he was working on his private pilot's license. And of course, when he got to the private oral, he failed it. And we told him, if you follow our method of instruction, get your license and then work on instruments. This is one of the things that showed up with him. And the guy came in, he says, he's not even ready. How come you failed him? And we told him what was going on, and we can't. He followed everything we have with the Air Force regulations, but he got so mixed up between IFR and VFR flight rules and being a student and being an instrument pilot that his oral did not go very well. And he finally, it took him about another 3 weeks to get straightened up, and he had no problems thereafter. Sometimes the most effective means to restore safety in the national airspace system is through the use of legal enforcement actions, and that takes place with the FAA. They have the right to pull your ticket. They have the right to send you to court. And that took place with one of my instructors I had who was flying a L-29, L-29, I beg your pardon. Could be an L-19, I forgot what it was now. But it was a pretty old jet, and they were out at Agua Dulce. And the guy that was flying wing after they briefed him did a roll, proceeded to crash and kill the manager and him on the roll of the jet aircraft at an air show while out of formation. So he came up out of the formation, went over the top, came back, scooped it out, and crashed and killed both of them. Because he was the flight leader, it took him about 9 months to get it straightened up in court. And they had documentation that one of the things that caught him was that a piece of paper was left on a table without a signature on it. It happened to be only a copy, but they used that against him. So be sure, if you're going to have an accident, be sure and clean house of everything that's available before you give it to the FAA. And they're on the phone immediately. I can experience that. Actions taken in the case that were repeated non-compliance indicate the person is either unable or unwilling to maintain in compliance or remain in compliance. Also, intentional reckless or criminal acts, as well as failure to complete agreed upon corrective actions, are also grounds for the FAA to take legal enforcement action. Administrative actions, which are warning letters, may also be used when appropriate to formally convey and document a regulatory deviation. So, as we get here at the end on my last bullet format, it says additional information regarding the compliance program can be found in Learn More section. I put that on the bottom of the page, and you can review that. But while we should be taking steps to prevent deviations, as long as humans are involved, mistakes will occur. But rather than attempt to ignore, dismiss, or even hide the error, we should address them head on. And when you do that, you correct that action and you'll remember it. I know a number of people will give me a lot of verbiage. I'll use that, be polite, in regards to looking in the mirror and find out where the real problem is. Everybody remembers that? How about looking in the mirror and see where the real problem is? You're looking at him, or you're looking at her. You're pointing the finger. You can't go, oh, it's your problem, it's your problem. This is the Air Force out at March. Yeah, go see so-and-so. They never look in the mirror to see where the problem starts. And with that, if you had any questions, I'll try and answer those. So what I've given you is the outline. I found it in the September-October Safety magazine. It's a good magazine. Comes out every 2 months. Talks about accidents. Talks about deviations. Talks about weather. So everything that comes across a table in regards to aviation will be in one of those articles. And they're written by very knowledgeable people. So with that concludes my report to you.
Good job. All right, Chuck.
So we've only got a few minutes left, so I'm happy to hang around if people want more information. What this is they call it a flyaway kit. It's basically an HF radio. It's an ALE radio. Puts out 150 watts. Within the kit, there is also a portable antenna, things like that. So you can take this anywhere and basically set up a HF radio station for emergency purposes or whatever use. When you get the opportunity to come up here and look, it supports solar power. There's a solar power input, regular DC input. There's a lot of ways that you can power this. This does have an internal battery, so it will function in low power by itself for a while, and then you can recharge the battery, whether it be solar, like I said, a generator, anything like that. The reason I brought this is the equipment that they're going to be using next week during Bold Quest. So what's happening with Bold Quest, just a quick overview, the aircraft will be transmitting patient data from the aircraft to ground stations. This is going to be one of the ground stations, but the purpose of this one is we're going to also take that data, send it via HF out to a Mercy Hospital ship. So it's a little bit of a different twist than they've done previously with Bold Quest, in that this one they're also going to be relaying that data via HF. The dismount crews on the aircraft will have what they call dismount kits. So they will have a radio very similar to these, and you guys, if you want to come up and take a look at these when we're done too, these are not just standard handhelds. These also have access to FirstNet LTE, so does all kinds of things. You can send location data, pictures, videos. You can keep track of somebody in a team, for instance. If you had 10 or 12 people out doing a search and rescue mission, you can keep track of exactly where they are. It has built-in GPS, multiple ways to communicate. Not only standard radio RF, it also does P25, does several different bands. So pretty slick radios. So you guys are welcome to peek at those. What's going to happen is the aircraft will be sending down that information. It'll be downlinked, but it'll also be visible on these radios. So a medical personnel could be watching this, could be monitoring, checking on the patients, things of that nature. We have a similar radio in the backpack there, just so you guys are aware. This is what's referred to as an ALE radio. That stands for Automatic Link Establishment. What happens is radios are scanning. So they're sitting there scanning a multitude of channels. What's always been the issue with shortwave radio is you have to almost become a solar engineer to understand what's happening with the sun, what's going on with the ionosphere, all of these things. ALE takes a lot of that out of the picture. The radio learns, the radio's smart, it listens, so when it hears other stations, it keeps track of what channel did I hear him on, what time was it, so the next time you want to connect to that person or talk to that person, you tell the radio to connect, it knows, oh, I heard him yesterday at this time on this channel, let me try that first. Sends out a protocol message, gets the two radios so that they both come up on the same channel, and then you talk. I mean, that in a perfect world, that's how it works the best. There's a couple of different generations of ALE. This one does both ALE2 and ALE3, which means this one will do the job a little bit better because it uses the GPS satellites to keep track of timing and things like that so that they know which channel they're on based on the GPS clock. So neat equipment. It's all owned by Civil Air Patrol. We're going to see more and more of these Codan radios being distributed. One of these kits, as I said, is going out to a Mercy Hospital ship. This one will be where we are at a campground near the coast. So we'll be sending that data out there shortwave. So
How do they send pictures?
It will
Does it
go.
come from the CAP camera? Or does
I would imagine they could use that as a feed.
or does it come from a cell phone?
They have what's called a dismount kit, so it looks like a small iPad that flips down on their chest. They can take pictures with that or take patient vital signs, do things like that. So they could send pictures and whatnot of wounds, of things that are going on. So pretty neat stuff. So anyway, any questions? You guys feel free. You can come up and take a peek at it. This runs more like a telephone than a radio. It's a handset. If people have been in the military, this is basically the bottom part is the man pack that soldiers used to carry around. This is the power supply, but that's really what this is based on, is the man pack design. So, all right, I think that's probably about top of the hour. Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. I want to encourage you guys, if you're interested in comms, let me know. We've got a neat system back there. It has a lot of capabilities. I finally set the HF radio up for scan. We've had several stations throughout California, Arizona, Nevada connect to that radio back there as a test to see if it was functional, if it was working, and it's working perfectly fine. So we have a lot of capabilities. On a very bad day, this squadron will not be inhibited if the internet's down or some other issue is going on. So.
Was the antenna included in the box?
It is not. It is not. It's in a separate case. I didn't bring all that. Yes, sir.
What is the approximate range of that system and its antenna?
Boy, that's, based on conditions.
Sure.
It's a 150 watt radio, which is a very powerful HF radio.
HF in San Diego, we used to talk to squadrons in Japan.
Easy. Yeah. Depending upon frequency, time of day, things like that.
And
So,
down at Imperial Beach in San Diego, they got a round antenna sitting on the beach, and it's probably 200 feet in diameter.
right. I've seen it.
And it's
Yep.
been about 30, 40 feet tall. It's an HF antenna.
Yep. Yeah. The ones that come with the kits, they have different styles. They also have portable masts to raise them up on, things like that. So, yeah, it's an amazing system. And again, if you want any information, if you're interested in comms, let me know. I'm still studying to get my technician, but I'm happy to help you out as much as I can back there in the back. CAP is investing a lot of time and money into comms, so it's important.
Where does this equipment stay?
This equipment stays at National and gets shipped out. The case is actually carry-on size, and that's why they call it a fly kit. You can actually carry this on, shove it in the overhead, and you're on your way. So.
Will the airlines have a problem with that? Or?
No, I don't think so. Because they utilize this battery cutoff switch. The battery that's internal is isolated, so
Plus it's in the cabin.
yeah,
Okay.
the cabin is
In fact, I don't think you can check it with the battery.
probably not. Probably not. And
Now,
these,
are they going to update the aircraft uplink ones with these eventually?
I don't know if their intent is to have these HF stations airborne or not. I'm not privy to any of that. I think they'll use these primarily on the ground, so the aircraft will always relay down, and then a ground station will take it. But the great part about this is you could take this anywhere. I mean, you could take this, to a disaster site and
Although
set
that
it up.
you can still communicate with the mobile repeater in an aircraft.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Any other questions? Anyway, I'll hang out for a while. If you guys want to come peek at it, you're more than welcome to. These are really cool. If you want to look at the display, there's a button down here, and you can poke at that, and it gives you lots of information on the screen. And it is a standard handheld radio as well, but a lot more capabilities. So. Very good.
Good. Thank you.
No, they'll be pre-programmed. Those aren't programmed with cap frequencies yet, but they would be pre-programmed. And you can just scroll through them.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. Well, thank you everybody for attending in person or virtually. I highly encourage everyone to be here in person if your work schedule permits. The virtual attendance is a backup. You cannot make it, you feel sick, you are remote for any reason, truly, yeah, that's why we have YouTube as an option, we have Teams as a primary online presence, but nothing is replacing the actual interaction and live communication with each other. So please be here if you can. Thank you. The meeting is over. Have a good night.
Do you have any questions?